Come on, leave the saving of the world to the men? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Volume. Sorry. You're not going to volume. Okay, perfect. Welcome, everyone, to the Nerdy Girls After Dark podcast. This is the one-stop pod where women can get their fandom content, relationship advice, fashion tips, belly laughs, and answers to all those dangerous questions that we have. This is all in one nerdy place. It's a podcast for nerdy girls by nerdy girls. We have a very special episode today for you guys. Some special guests are here with us. Before we get started, just a reminder, in the comments, be respectful of everybody.
Yes.
Like I said, just be respectful and kind. We need kindness in this world right now. So keep that going in the comments. And everyone grab your favorite beverage, whatever that may be tonight. And cheers to you all.
Clink.
Clink, clink, clink. We need that sound effect still.
Looks like Mom's drinking water. It's a white claw in a cup.
That's all right. I should have poured mine in a cup. Oh, well. Okay, so we have some few attention moments for you guys this week.
Should we introduce our very
Oh
special
yeah,
guest?
sorry. Thank you,
No, that's
Sarah.
okay.
Going off topic. Yes, introduce our wonderful guest. Maya, if you would like to start, introduce your mama.
Yeah,
And
so
if she would like to say a few things too.
for sure. So as we know, Mother's Day is this weekend. We got some fun plans. We're actually going to a Bridgerton ball in Chicago.
Ooh.
That sounds amazing.
Everything is going to be great. But this is my mom, Kim. Mom, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Maya's mama. Mom of 3. I'm just happy to be here, and yeah.
What would you say makes you a nerdy girl, Mom? Because there's a lot of topics that you like.
Yeah.
I'm a nerdy girl because I am a nerd, but I love to read a lot about financing, and I love history. You can catch me at 2:00 in the morning watching the History Channel.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but so that's my thing. I love science. So yeah, that's me.
Nice.
And a real estate guru.
Yeah, I'm a real estate guru, and that's kind of incorporate the real estate with all the, I'm really into women understanding finances and real estate and generational wealth and what we need to do to empower our children and our children's children. So
Nice. Welcome, Kim. Yes.
Yes, welcome. Thanks for being here.
And Jalen's mom's also named Kim. I just want to say.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We could have had 2 Kims tonight, but that's okay. All right, Kara.
Yes, I have my mom here too. Her name is Doreen. Would you like to introduce yourself, Doreen?
I'm glad to be here. My name is Doreen. I'm a mother of 2 and a grandmother of 2. Very proud of both. So, yeah.
What makes you a nerdy girl, Mom?
Wow. I could use this.
That's fair.
Let's not talk about the fact that she watches like all kinds of leadership videos and training videos on her own time at night, Saturday morning.
Interesting.
Always learning.
Brene Brown fan?
Yes.
Okay. Love that.
Both of us, actually.
What?
Brene Brown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love her. Vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Sarah's favorite.
Working on it.
There'll be a podcast later, an episode later on
Yeah, there we go.
vulnerability when we're all ready to go there. But welcome, you two. We're very excited that you're both here
Yes.
to discuss what we have for the episode today. But first, let's get into those moments that caught our attention this week.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please?
I love that video. All right, we'll go to Maya again.
Okay, well, there's a lot that could be said about this week specifically, but we're going to focus on the positive, the fun. And for me, that is Met Gala. Happened last night, or no?
Nice.
Was it last night or Sunday night?
Sunday?
night.
Yeah.
Sunday, yes.
So I don't know if anyone loved just like, you know, I'm in my sweats judging all these looks as if I'm like, but I just really like seeing the looks. I know this year the theme was like gilded glamour or something along the line. So
interesting.
Like really focusing on the gilded age.
Blake Lively's gown was
Oh, yes.
Absolutely gorgeous. And it was tough because I told myself I could only pick my top two. So I'm going to give my top two favorite looks. First one, got to go with There's so many people who did not go on theme this year. And I just feel like this pop of color, you know, she was the OG, Cruella de Vil. And I just felt like kind of gave that presence here. But the pop of color is amazing. And Jalen Rose, the same designer who did Sebastian Stan.
Yes, I was just going to say they were like twinning.
Yes, they were twinning. So I just love the embellishments on here. Just gorgeous. And I just think she's like a timeless beauty. So
yeah, she is.
And I want that pink jumpsuit. That was so cool.
Yes, I love
pink. So,
and I love pants. So practical. I love when people actually fit with pants. And then my next pick is Cardi B.
I don't know if I saw that one.
Always on theme, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Definitely is on theme, and I just love the color on her. She's just gorgeous, and every year she kills it. So those are my two favorite Met Gala looks. Did y'all have any that kind of caught your eye?
Well, Blake Lively, yeah, Sebastian Stan. I saw his post on Instagram before I saw like him officially like on the red carpet or whatever they call it. And he was just chilling in that chair in his bright pink suit. I was like, oh, love a man who wears pink.
I was going to DM that to you, but I'm like, I knew she's already saw it.
I liked it already.
Right.
Kim Kardashian obviously looked amazing. Can I get your guys' opinions on Kylie's backwards hat, though?
I gotta look that up. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
Kylie Jenner wore a backwards hat, like a baseball
like
cap?
a wedding dress kind of.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really pay attention to her hat.
Yeah. I just for it to be such an exaggerated look and it not be on theme, I'm like, that's a lot of effort for you not to be on theme. But I wasn't a big fan.
I thought I read that this was like the first Met Gala all the Kardashians were like invited to.
Oh wow! Because Kris Jenner was there. Honestly, I don't know if you saw the Kim Kardashian interview, but it was kind of. I'm surprised she said this live, but she said she lost 16 pounds in 3 weeks to fit into Marilyn Monroe's dress.
What?
16 pounds in 3 weeks?
Do you really want to say that live?
That's dangerous.
Yeah,
yikes.
Well, I mean, I guess she did say the flu was her best diet plan one time, so because she doesn't care too much about weight loss affecting other people.
Ladies, don't listen to that.
Yeah.
Eat your dinner.
Yes.
Eat your breakfast. Eat your lunch.
Right.
Drink your water.
Days only.
Drink your White Claw or wine, whatever you got.
Right.
Oh,
there it is.
Ooh.
For anyone listening on audio, we're taking a look at the picture of Kylie and her backwards hat.
She's
I don't get it.
She doesn't even look happy.
Yeah, it's like a snap.
I know. It looks like she's behind bars.
She clearly does not like it.
It's just a very fancy event. And so to have a backwards hat at a fancy event seems out of place.
Yeah.
And it's exaggerated. It's really big. It's weird. Anyway.
All right. Sarah, what was your attention moment this week?
I don't know if y'all know this, but there's a little movie coming out on Thursday. Doctor Strange in the
What?
Multiverse of Madness. I know, so weird. We're getting new cinema Marvel content. I'm very excited about it. But that means that we've had a lot of red carpet looks. And so I pulled this one just because I love the blues happening. Elizabeth Olsen, I mean, they kind of look like a brother and sister that are in a fight right now and don't want to like be around each other. But this is from the Berlin premiere, and I just think they look so snazzy. And Benedict looks so tan.
He does.
And they both look really good. So
they look relaxed. Like they look like they're in comfy clothes and not because his suit looks like jeans.
Like you and I have different like ideas of what comfy clothes is, because comfy clothes to me is like a baggy sweater.
Well, I'm just saying compared to like a big old ball gown or something.
Yeah,
like compared to those Met Ball.
I do
Met
like
Gala
her
looks.
all the sequins on that. What is that a bodice, Maya? What would you call that?
What are we looking at?
I don't know.
Her under her jacket.
But I don't know what it is, but it's very cute.
Anyway,
the color looks great on her.
Shout out to my mom. I'm going to see it on Thursday, and we moved our travels back a day.
That's true love. That is true love.
I think that my mom's attention moment was that you guys are going to a Bridgerton something or other, because
I need to hear that. I need to hear more about that.
We'll get my mom up after this with some more information.
We will send the link. They're traveling all over the country, kind of like that interactive Van Gogh type thing that everyone was getting at.
I saw like the trailer. I'm sorry, I'm going off topic real quick. I saw a trailer for the movie, and it said only in theaters May 20th. Is it really just one day? Because that didn't make any sense.
Bridgerton, it's a show on Netflix.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking Downton Abbey. Oh my goodness. It's been a long day, guys. Sorry.
I don't know.
Just kidding. Ignore that. Edit that out. Cut it. Nope, I was thinking Downton Abbey. All right. Well, to move on from that, we'll go to my attention moment. It is actually just a personal thing that happened. Didn't happen worldwide or anything, but I have been reading this new book series. It is labeled as Harry Potter meets Twilight. So two of my favorite things. And of course, I had to check out the series. So this is book 2 that I read in like 3 days because I just couldn't stop reading it. And I had mixed feelings when it ended. And there's more books in the series. There's like 4 more books or something. So there's a lot more to come. But I like I said, mixed feelings, and I hope it just gets better in the 3rd book, and that the ending we got in this one just makes up for it.
Can I ask you something, Jalen?
Yes.
So you read the Hunger Games books, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also have mixed feelings at the end of that trilogy, the way that trilogy ended?
Yes. I hope there's more.
Was it the same? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, then I thought I would get like some closure with like the prequel book, but I didn't like the prequel book, so I did not get any closure from that. So hopefully there's just more Hunger Games books after that to kind of tie it all up and make it a little better than what we got.
Fingers crossed.
I'm putting that on my reading list. Yeah, Twilight. You know, I didn't read Harry Potter, but Twilight. That cover looks very Twilight-esque.
It did.
And the first book was really, really good, and it got me hooked. And just, I think what I didn't like about the second one is just how she kind of changed the characters' personalities. Like, I don't like when authors do that, when they set up a whole story and then they just kind of change them in the next few books or whatever. So I'm hoping it just gets better because I bought them all, so now I have to read them all.
You're stuck.
I'm stuck. All right. Any other attention moments that came up or anything? All right. Well, we will move on to our main topic today, which is why we got some fabulous moms with us to help give their input and opinions on these.
Wisdom.
Yes. We are going to talk about generational cycles today. So we're going to start with what are generational cycles? So who would like to start?
It's a good question.
It's a loaded question.
Is that a mom question?
I think it could be for anyone.
Anybody.
If a mom has an answer, it's a mom question. What do you think, Kim?
You can also give examples too. Examples of what.
Okay. I think when I think of generational cycles, I think of things that habits or customs or norms that we carry on from generation to generation. When I think of the cycles, and the cycles may be healthy, may be unhealthy, but it's just whatever your family's norms are.
Doreen, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's probably good. It's also, I think, based on like behavioral things can become generational cycles too. Trauma can go for generations if it's not been dealt with. So there are things that can get passed down from generations that have to do with the life that we're living and how we cope. And if we're not careful, we don't know what we're passing on. Values, thoughts, ideas are often done through generational cycles and cultures.
Yes, agreed. Kara, Maya, do you have anything, or do you agree with what your moms said, or have any additional input?
I mean, no, I totally agree. And I think it's like a good call. Just like some of it is you recognize it and some of it you don't. So it's interesting to know, like when people talk about wanting to sustain like good, positive, healthy things that pass down through generations or things that are negative, it's all about if you can see it for yourself too. So I think just knowing that they can be visible or invisible.
It's one of the interesting parts about getting older, because you start realizing, oh, okay, this may not be something that's normal. Like this may be something that's passed down. Maybe this is something that I want to do differently. I know for sure that my mom has done things differently in specific ways that she noticed. Like, I don't know, maybe you want to talk about some of the things that you've done, but that she's been very on purpose about breaking specific cycles from her past, which has been, and she's been very, I guess, like on purpose with that and talking to us about it since we were little. So I think that this is something that we've always been cognizant of since we were young. But like, do you want to talk about some examples?
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel that, if I don't deal with my stuff, it's going to come out in ways maybe that I don't want it to with my kids. And so, but for me growing up in a stoic German household, it was wrong to verbalize that you loved your children. I never heard my parents say the words, "I love you," although they really did. And in the same way, I remember my dad used to say that he felt if he encouraged or praised us as kids, that we would become conceited and become, really horrible human beings and as adults. So I was really on purpose with my own kids. They heard "I love you" a lot. And
it was not so fun as a kid. Like, Mom, stop, I know. Now, as an adult, looking back, I'm so thankful for that because it has shaped a lot of who I am and how I treat other people. But yeah, kisses, I'll always give hugs and like dropping me off at school, and she can't stop hugging and kissing me and telling me she loves me.
So like I had a bit of a different philosophy than some of the therapists or whatever would say, because they're like, when your kids get old enough to say, ew, don't touch me in public, that's embarrassing, you're supposed to respect that. Well, I didn't. I went the opposite way. It's like, oh yeah, really? Because my feeling was at that age, you actually need it more than ever, but you're so afraid of peer pressure at that point in time that you just you feel like you can't. And so if they ever did say that in public, they only got it more. They learned to just like put up with it. So, and now would you say that was a good thing or a bad thing?
I would say it's a good thing.
Doreen, I have a question for you, because I think and you mentioned therapy. So obviously what you experienced growing up is very different from what you bestow on your own children and grandchildren. Like, how was that? Like, from not having something to being able to provide it, like an abundance of it? Like, was there, like, when you don't see it, how was that being able to fill that gap and like take on that new actions essentially?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, I think even as children, we really know who we are and when we're different, so, and how we want to be. And I remember as a child really craving that, because my personality and my makeup was very affectionate, and so for a while I thought it was wrong to do that or to want that. So just to be able to try something different when I became an adult was, I don't know how to answer that question, but I knew you kind of know, because everybody has their own mind, right? So they kind of know what they want to do and be, and there comes a point in your life where you feel a freedom to do something different. I think that's really healthy.
Did you cry the first time I said that I love you?
I can't remember.
I think that's it. Also takes a certain amount of self-awareness, I think, to be aware that something needs to change, but also the courage to do it. I think, Doreen, very proud of you for making the conscious effort to do that. That is amazing. And I say that because, bless my mom, she's not here tonight, but she is a product of her own parents, and so she learned what she learned, and I don't know if she just isn't maybe aware of the things that could have changed, but for whatever reason it didn't happen, and now it's on me and my sister and my brother to be aware of those things and change those things. But so I just want to tell you, good job for doing that. Yes.
That's amazing.
That is great. I can say the kids we were very active as parents, and we used to embarrass them the same way. Middle school, but not like they said I wasn't huggy, touchy, but I can tell you one thing. The 5 love languages, not only that came out in relationships, but I also use that in relationships with everybody. Right. So I grew up where, quality time, just like touchy feely, like Maya, Maya's are words of affirmation. So, and I can, one of them. Yeah. But the point is that if I love her the same way that I was loved, or what I think is love, we're missing the boat. And even though she has a twin, she's totally different. So I love the fact that 5 love languages actually is something that we use now, because I use that in, dealing with a boss, a neighbor, my grandson. I do have a grandson, by the way. And I know how I have to be able to pivot to different ways. Like, I can buy my husband all the gifts in the world, but he could care less.
Yeah.
So, so with that, I think that's really a good thing. And also I had like an aha moment at one point where I deal with anxiety a lot. And I'm like, oh my God, my mom's no longer here. My mom had anxiety. I had that aha moment. Like, it just started hitting me, like all these different things that happened.
Wow. And
she thought she had heart attacks several times. And, mom had panic attacks. that was never discussed.
Mhm.
Now, when I look back at that, and anxiety is hereditary, and I'm like, oh my God, mom and grandma, my grandma too. So I share those things, and I think it's important that when I say we talk about those cycles, how to break that, how to know your triggers, how to talk things over, and not take things so personal, and just try to sometimes sit back and say, okay, let me walk away from this and, take deep breathing. I breathe, I meditate. But that is one of the cycles that I can honestly say that I feel really happy about, that I think I've broken. And talking about that, that's something you probably would never talk about back in
Stigma.
those days.
Right.
Mhm.
And that
That's amazing.
really made me like think about just like, generations, every like you, Nana, like it's just like everyone's growing up in their own generation too. So for Nanny not to recognize that as anxiety is because like available, having access to that research, and we can quickly YouTube a Brene Brown and watch a video on how to cope with anxiety, but those same resources weren't at every our elders or like previous generations' disposal. So it's interesting to see how tools and access to a lot of things has really helped with breaking generational cycles that were negative or unhealthy.
And just being able to put a name on it like that, even we take that for granted, but
Mhm.
my grandma didn't even know what depression, it was the blues or baby blues or all that kind of stuff, not even knowing what to call it. It's crazy to think about.
Right. Can you imagine?
So I can share a story of my dad because he's no longer with us either. But when he was a child, he was physically abused by his dad, and his dad was an alcoholic. And so whenever he would get drunk, he would, get physical. And my dad grew up in an abusive home, and vowed very early on that would be something he would never do. He was never going to drink or anything because of how it affected him. So when he grew up, he went to university to become a social worker and ended up becoming a substance abuse counselor, and would never touch alcohol, and was, did a lot of work to do that, to break the generational cycle of alcoholism, because that, even substance abuse like that, alcohol and drugs, is something that you can pass on as a generational cycle. And he and my mom had 4 kids, and none of us have an alcoholism problem, because he did break that generational cycle. So that was really, not that none of us or our kids could ever be alcoholics. It's just that he did the work to break that cycle for the next generation. And I always grew up knowing that it was really on me to do my own work, and the reason for it is so that I would pass it on, to my kids. So whatever I needed to deal with, because people sometimes don't take the time to deal with their own stuff. They feel like they're not worth it, or that it's, there's no value in it, but there is value because of it can get passed on, right? So sometimes you do things for your kids that you wouldn't necessarily do for yourself, but this generational cycles, you can't not pass it on unless you deal with it yourself, right? Otherwise it will, like you say, without even knowing it. So
Well, that's a good question, is at what point do we decide like the responsibility is on us to break it?
That's
So
my
like
question too.
like
How much of the responsibility is on us?
what is where do you make that choice and how?
When you recognize it, when you know better, you can do better. So yeah, that's the key, because some people may be stuck and they may not see that, there is a problem. It bothers me when I hear, well, this is the way we've always done it, or this is how it is. So once you know better, you can do better. And then you have a sense of responsibility to make that change. You can't sit back and not do anything about it. I mean, that's not healthy in itself. Yeah. And when I say when you know better, you do better, and you share like the conversations that we're having right now, I think Maya and my kids are going to be more conscious about it. And the generational cycle is being broken right now because I want change. I want change for myself while I'm here, and I want change for my children. And I can just say, like, communication is really bad in our family. I mean, we were screamers, and we're screamers, and it bothers me that sometimes the kids think I'm mad because I'm just loud right now. Like, I'm not mad, I'm just elevated. You know what I mean? And that's a generational thing because that's how we all communicated. I mean, mom will be like, yeah, upstairs, like it drives my husband crazy. He would say, come to me, like we're just screamers. And that is something that I think is very important because that's not a good way of communicating. And making those changes. So that is a good point. When you ask that, once we recognize it, and it's really healthy when you have family members that know that it's not healthy and you work on those things together. It's a challenge when you have people that don't want to work on it, but you can't stay stuck. You have to keep moving and growing. And I believe in my heart of hearts, when people see that you change and they see the change in you, I think that people eventually will change. They might not tell you, but they will take heed of the peace that you have and the changes that you make. And I believe people can jump on it, but we can't be judgmental and tell people what you're not doing, and we're not making those changes ourselves.
So once you recognize it, you're responsible for it.
Yeah,
essentially.
Mm-hmm.
To that point, Kim, and my mom's story earlier about my grandparents never saying I love you. My grandma will now occasionally say I love you to all of us. Not every time.
Not to the kids, to her grandkids.
To us.
Yeah.
I love you.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's impressive.
But I think it's a great question you asked, Sarah, because I think that not a lot of people think about, generational cycles. And when you're in one, it's just normal. You don't think of it as it's just normal because it's something you don't think about. So to become aware, it actually takes courage, and it takes a desire some way to be better. So generally people who are like forward thinking or like have a success mindset, a positive mindset, however you want to call it, but they want to excel in life, might think of something like that. But other people, they just feel like there's nothing they can do. I am who I am.
Yep.
And you don't know what you don't know. And they're just content, and therefore it just continues. And so
that's my dad.
Yeah. So it takes a lot of emotional intelligence, EQ, or to really think about things like that and say, oh, maybe I could do something different. And what would that look like? It takes a lot of bravery to admit when something you're doing isn't the right thing.
Well, and also the power of responsibility. Like, I can sit here and be like, well, I'm like this because my mom did this, so like this now. Whereas responsibility also takes the blame off of you and says, okay, well, this is a generational cycle that's been through the family. It's also not your fault. Like, it's come from generations before you. So it also changes, like, a bitterness that I may have towards you, I can actually fuel into doing something productive for our future, which also in turn does something productive for you and the whole family. So it's just an entire different mindset, and it brings a different freedom than the blame that a lot of people like to sit in.
No, that was a huge lesson for me, because I think, and it could just be like, well, obviously generational cycles, but generational thing. we always, I feel like we butt heads around like how we view professionalism and like career climbing. Because like for, I recognize that my Nana, my mom, they went by different roles, especially as Black women, like having to get a job and like how you had to present yourself. If I'm wearing my hair like this, or if I want to wear a purple wig, my mom's like, that's not professional. And it's just like, but different, like when, different times and, feeling a little bit more comfortable being my authentic self in the workplace, they did not have access to previously. So I think for me, I'm always like, Mom is always, I remember I had an interview, slap this wig.
Put this wig on, girl. Take that blonde off.
I remember I had braids and I remember getting them like taken out and throwing this crazy looking wig on for my current job because I'm thinking, oh, it's not professional. But, those were the rules and like what you had to go by to get a job back then. So I think it's really, like you said, Kara, like good understanding that it wasn't my mom's fault, it wasn't my Nana's fault. It's just we're now kind of, the world around us is changing. And I can, understand the history of the women in my family, but also know that, I'm kind of operating in a different worldview.
Yeah. But see, being in the workplace and being around those people, I see what she's saying, but I still hear those conversations. So a lot of people still are in the workplace that are making decisions. And I understand what she's saying, but I'm like, get through the door first. So I'm 50-50.
It's an ongoing conversation.
It is. I'm 50-50 there. But to be having friends in HR and being in situations where I've seen, I don't like how she looks and her application gets put to the side, that still scares me. And it's not necessarily, so we're 50-50 on that. Be yourself, but get through the door. And I say those people are.
And for me, I'm thinking if there's a place that's not going to accept me for my hair, I don't want to work there. It's a different type of mindset.
Yeah. So it is. It is.
Well, that's something like some things that you're never going to.
Yeah, and I realize that I'm like, we're never going to get there because my son's in HR and we talk about this all the time. But I'm sure you can relate, Mom, to do. We want the best for our children, and we know who they are. We know how bright they are. We know what they have to offer. But there's just some biases that are just still out here that, like we just talked about, family members who don't want to change. I mean, these people are still here. So
that's practicing vulnerability. That's a struggle I encounter whenever I get to a new job. I identify as a queer person, and so it's like, how out do I want to be before I walk through the door? It's like, should I be my authentic self right off the bat? Because if I don't want to be at a workplace where I'm not accepted anyway. So, it's a balance. It really is.
Well, I think we're getting into generational cycles of not just a family generational cycle,
workplace,
cultural, a societal generational cycle that is harder to break because I can step outside of my family. Well, I can move away, I can do whatever, and I can work on me and create a whole life. But a cultural or a societal generational cycle is difficult to break because how do you break it for everybody, right? Like you have to break that for millions of people who have different situations, who have different experiences, who have different upbringings and may or may not, like speaking of people who are not willing to change, not willing to put in the work or understand or become aware of what's happening. That's a whole different generational cycle that I think our generation and those below us are starting to, kick dust and make some kind of changes. But yeah, that's in both cases
that's another episode.
As a light example of that, I remember I just explained to my mom what ASMR is, like, people eating in a mic and like people liking the sound. She was so confused. She's like, what?
That is so disgusting.
And then that's so normal for our generation. Like I feel like it's very common. Like YouTubers are making millions off this type of content. And it's just like another example of
Eating pickles. Yeah.
honeycomb.
Well, I guess I watch Pimple Poppers, so I mean, I get it a little bit. I like to see the oozing pimples, so I kind of get it. But the food part is like, what?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, those
Yeah.
generational things outside of the family context, yeah, those are hard because it's like someone's whole. You don't want to discredit someone's whole life experience and world. Like that's how they navigated the world at this time. So like it's tough because when you say everything is wrong, but like how do we make clear learning paths so there's at least a common ground for understanding?
Right, right.
And this is where community comes in, because even with breaking, and I think Kim brought this up earlier, like having other family members who are interested in learning, like for me, my sister and we talk about all kinds of stuff. My mom's been very open. I have cousins who also talk, like anxiety, same for us, runs very strong at both sides of my family. So having that community empowers us to do better. And same thing in cultural, societal, generational cycles, finding community and people who are willing to be allies, who are willing to, you know, move forward and put in the work to do stuff. You have to do it with community. You can't do anything by yourself.
Jalen, do you find that you and your brother are on the same page when it comes to generational stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we're not super close or anything. I mean, we get along and stuff, but I think
my
just
brother and I are
me
close together.
being the older sister, I'm just like, why do I want to hang out with my younger brother and stuff? I think as we've gotten older, and we've realized that we have more interest in common, we can actually bond more. But I was also going to say, I think for the generation even below us, growing up with social media, I think that's going to impact them a lot because they can see the generational cycles happening on social media with videos being posted, photos being posted. You know, they can look back and see, you know, kind of that evidence or whatever you want to call it. Like, this is what my life was like. I don't want my life to be like that anymore, or have my kids' life be like that. So I think, as annoying as social media can be sometimes, I think there is some good that will come out of that. And I think it will kind of help break those cycles a little bit.
Right. I don't think for me, I'm a bridge. I look at myself as a bridge, even though we battle with the kids and I say things with them, but I'm also that bridge to relate to other people as well. So we have our talks, but they don't realize that I'm really an advocate. When they teach me and I'm learning these things, I'm also the person that bridges the gap to the people who don't get it at all. So I always try to go back and forth, and I give them both sides, because the workforce right now has 4 generations in the workforce. That's incredible.
That's crazy. Yeah.
You have boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and what is that?
Gen Z.
And Gen Z. 4. And the older millennials right now is so valuable in the workplace because they kind of understand. Like, I don't know how old you guys are. So older millennial will be like 32, 33.
No, 40s.
Oh, 40s. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't think so.
40s. That's Gen X. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, 40s is Gen X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mid 30s is elder millennial.
I am Gen X, but your brother's.
Okay, so it's like late 30s up to 40,
Well, I don't even
right?
think, I think it's like mid 30s. But either way it go, they kind of understand still the Gen Xers. They kind of was hanging out with grandma still before the internet. They was sitting there watching As the World Turns with grandma. So whereas, I mean, honestly, that, you know, so they're very important. You're like right there in the middle. But when, I don't know, the boomers trying to relate with what's up under you guys?
Gen Z.
Gen Z, it's like, they feel like it's just like going to China and no one knowing the language. It's really tough.
I have to say, as a millennial trying to relate to a Gen Z, I find it very difficult.
Yes.
That's very true.
I work with students, and sometimes they come in and they talk to me, and I'm like, I text Maya and I'm like, Maya, what
I
is
don't
this?
feel bad.
Yeet.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
when I'm
know.
a younger, I'm like, if
Younger.
1995 is the cusp, a lot of times that's how people would define it. I'm December 1995, so I'm still a millennial.
Yeah.
And things
I
like
know I find myself Googling what things are a lot and how to do things. I'm like,
Mhm.
how am I like acting this old when I have to Google everything?
And this
Mhm.
is why we have the at this point I'm too afraid to ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And,
Right.
and we'll get there because we got some of those questions.
Right.
But before we get to those, does anyone have any last minute thoughts on generational cycles and how to break them? Any tips or advice on how to break them?
I did. Can I ask for the mamas, if there are any kids listening, kids as in children of parents like my age, would I find it very difficult sometimes to try and talk with my mom about some of those things because we all have blind spots, right?
Mhm.
And we all need that kind of feedback in order to do better and be better. With my mom, I mean, I'm tempted to say, oh, it's just how she is, but I think that we can all be better and we can all
Mhm.
choose to do better. And
Mhm.
so when I try and talk to her sometimes about those
Mhm.
blind spots, it can be tough because sometimes she feels like she needs to go on the defensive,
Mhm.
and that's not what I'm trying to do.
Mhm.
But I wanted to ask y'all specifically, do you have any pointers for me or anyone who's listening about having those types of difficult conversations? What is a good way to go about those?
Yeah, I think it is tough, and it's tough both ways. But
Yeah.
if your mom is, I think the most important thing in as Kim's talking about communication and how huge it is, you have to be able to listen. And if you're not willing to listen, um, it may
Yeah.
not, you may not be able to. But if ever you find an opening in a conversation,
Mhm.
to try and bring just a little bit and do it a little bit at a time and not be too worried. I think someone said this earlier is maybe you don't get the response you want at first, but then
Yeah.
the change does happen after you've been able to
Gradually.
think about it and sit with it. Because I think if when our kids tell us we're less than perfect, it's very painful. Even though we know it,
Oh.
it is painful because I was one of those parents that from the moment my kids were born, I read every book that I could read to be the perfect parent. And I tried everything to do everything that I could not to make one single mistake as a parent. And lo and behold, I made a ton of mistakes. But as much as you try, you're not going to get anything perfect. So to be able to listen and hear those things, to be able to say I'm sorry,
Mhm.
those are difficult, and you may or may not have that opportunity with your mom. I try and do that. Kara always laughs at me because I'm constantly saying how sorry I am. I'm so sorry about this, and I'm so sorry about that this happened or that happened.
Yeah.
Because I did want to do. I do now have a different opportunity with my grandkids. I feel like I have a second chance to do that. And something that came up the other day, a mistake that I made with the kids when they were young is because I was in a public sector so often people were wanting my attention and the kids would be like, hey mommy, mom, but I'm in the middle of like a mini therapy session or a counseling session with somebody, and I didn't want to break that to talk, so the kids would get ignored, and I felt really bad about that. So now with my grandkids, if my grandkids want my attention, they get it immediately.
Mhm.
And Kara was complaining the other day, she goes, when
It's still me. It's still me who gets ignored.
And I thought about that after, because on purpose, I had thought to myself, that is not going to happen to my grandkids. But then she said, you know, if we're having a conversation and Harley says something, you're just gone right away with Harley. Because and then I went, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm not doing this right. You never get it right. So, but if you do get the opportunity, Sarah, maybe you will. I think it's an act of love to be able to say something, you know, and you can't control how it's received, but you know how to be true to yourself and what you need to say. So,
So Sarah, one thing I can say is, as I've gotten older and dealing with so much conflict over the years, one thing I realize is everybody has their own level of truth. So what they might think is the truth or what's right, and I have it, and that person. So when you have this conflict, trying to break that. So for example, if you would say, Mom, you did this, or Mom, you did that, or you said this, or this is how you made me feel. The other day, Maya and I were having a conflict, and I gave her some specific examples. This is why I feel this way, and this is why. And and it really makes a big difference. So if your mom feels like, well, Mom, I know what you're saying, and this is how I feel, but we have to meet somewhere in the middle. Or those examples, well, Mom, when you said this, and when you said that, and when this happened, this is how I felt. I mean, I think those are very helpful, especially when you're trying to, and I don't know, like when you and your mom talk, like, is it like you have your opinion, she has her opinion, you just can't meet them together? Or is she opinionated? Does she think she know it all? Is she extremely judgmental? So in those things, you might have to just say, these are the issues that, you know, that we're having. And I just wish that we can, you know, meet somewhere in the middle. But quit thinking, and I think we all think that a person is this way, but that person only knows what they know. Like we just talked about.
Right.
So they have their own level of what they feel is right and their own level of truth. And once we come together and be able to be able to mesh those, I think that's when the breakthrough comes in.
And I think you hit on something that I try and remind myself, that she was not equipped with the tools or the vocabulary to be able to say how she feels and express things and communicate very well. So I do try and empathize with her upbringing a little bit more. So that's a good point. Those are great responses. Thank you, moms. I appreciate that.
I would add, like, especially if, like, just from your perspective, like, obviously we're in the same, like, situations here with, like, mother-daughter dynamic, but I think it's always important, like she said, provide examples, but sometimes, like, obviously the specific situations between you two, but, like, for example, the Harris situations, you know, for me, I think, was it the woman on the main stage for my old job? She was wearing green locks, and I think I dropped it in the chat. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's on the main stage with green locks. So, like, I think giving examples to kind of, like, ease them into like normalizing the things that you which may seem very normal for your generation and, like, your friends and, you know, your own experience. But I think that's also really important too.
Examples,
and
exposure.
Like the stuff that she will be able to relate to. So, but
meet her where she's at.
Yeah.
Meet her where she's at, and then take those baby steps with her.
What is the Agent Carter quotes? Like, compromise where you can,
and where you can't, don't.
Yes, exactly.
And so, like a tree or something.
Absolutely. And because at the end of the day, if there's areas where, you know, she's not willing to listen or can't find that common ground, then, you know, that's an area that you may not want to engage in conversation or like leave it separately. Because obviously, and just focus on the areas where you do have in common. Because, like, spending your whole life trying to convince someone of something that they're not budging on, which is going to be a waste of.
It's exhausting.
Right.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And also keeping mind of her love languages, how she hears stuff.
Yes, that's a good word.
when I'm trying to communicate something with my mom. She is very words of affirmation. So any small negative thing to her sounds like, I just smashed her in the head with a baseball bat. And to me, it seems like I just gave her a flower. So there's difference there. So when there's a big conflict, taking a step back, making a game plan of, okay, how can I talk to her in a way that she can hear me and that she can also feel loved? And it's very difficult because we have different communication styles, different love languages, and it can be difficult. But if you're both willing to make progress, if you're both willing to meet in the middle and to work on the relationship, then it's possible.
Yeah, I think listening is just very important. For like me and my mom, we have different views and opinions on a lot of things, but we'll still talk about it. And we'll go into a conversation, not looking to change the other person's mind at that time, but just listening to what they have to say. And then maybe in the future, come back and be like, you said this is how I feel about it. Is there a way we can find that common ground on whatever the issue is? But I think just listening and not being defensive right away is important because, like I said, we all have our own views and opinions on everything, and talking with someone who doesn't agree on those, it can be tough, but it can also be rewarding to hear that other viewpoint because you can learn something you didn't know before.
Yeah.
For sure. That's a good word because I am always out here trying to change someone's mind. I'm gonna think about that.
And I think that's what everyone wants to do. They want everyone to think like how you think. And I think as a society we need to realize, well, that's not going to happen. We're all never going to agree on anything as much as we would want to.
Nor should we.
So I think that's why it's important to have those civil conversations and not just lash out because someone thinks a different way.
And that's like really hard to do too, because I'm like, now with the era of social media, with our algorithms, there's hyper specific to our outlook of the world, that when you come across like something that could have been an easy conversation pre-social media is now like, oh my God, this is attack, or this is something ridiculous. And I know I'm very guilty of it. You both are. So I think that it's really important to recognize how, I hate to always bring it back to social media, but like how we consume information is also affecting our empathy and our ability to connect with other people.
That's a great point. Yep. Sensitivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But before we close, we do have a question that was submitted for, at this point, I'm too afraid to ask segment. So a question that was submitted was, how often should I wash my sheets? There is kind of a debate on, what's a good time frame on how often should I do it? I think we all may have our own way, ways that and how often we do it. That so I think it'd be interesting to see what everyone's thoughts are.
You're supposed to do it weekly, but to be honest, I do it every 2 weeks.
Same here.
I had, we had a housekeeper, and she swears that you're supposed to do it every 2 or 3 times a week. I'm like, what? I think the rule of thumb is like weekly or every 2 weeks.
That's what I do, is every 2 weeks. But I also have 3 animals that sleep in bed with me, so they get full of cat hair.
I do mine every 2 weeks too.
Okay.
And you know why? Because my mom did it that way.
And I do it because my mom did it that way.
That's funny. That's funny.
I do. Yeah, it's whenever I do my laundry. So, like, week and a half, 2 weeks.
That's crazy that we're all the same. I thought we would be like monthly or every other month or something, but I like that we're all every couple weeks.
Maybe
I was going to say, I would like to ask guys that. Comes in town, or something like that.
Yeah, so we did put this up on Instagram. And there was 5%, which was about 5 people who said only once every few months.
That is.
And I'm not going to
that
name
can't be
it,
good.
but there were male and females, but there was mostly females in that 5%.
Oh, that's
cycles
disappointing.
in there, too.
Interesting.
Which I found interesting. Now that being said, we don't have a lot of college boys, I don't think, that are on this.
Yeah.
So
They're probably all married, who all the women do it for them. anyways.
Exactly.
Right. Well, actually, I don't know. I just don't know. Can't color sheets, so.
I mean, there's no better feeling than getting into bed in a nice,
Oh, yes.
clean sheet. It's just
Take
the
them out
best.
the dryer.
Mhm.
Yes.
I would do it every week if I didn't hate the actual physical
Right. I
Yes.
hate it.
putting the duvet cover on.
Oh, that's a pain.
is
Yep.
horrible.
Especially when you have no help.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
folding the sheet, the fitted sheet.
Oh,
folding it. I
How,
hate
like,
it.
is everybody else out of breath at that moment, or is it?
Yes. My
I
back
don't
will
have- I
hurt
don't have
sometimes.
The arm span for it. I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah.
horrible. I hate
The
it when
the
I'm
thing that has changed my life are deep fit sheets. So I'm not having to like pull and stretch the fitted
Yeah.
sheet.
Mhm.
Deep fit.
Deep
It
fit,
sounds
she's right.
risque. It's not. It's
It's
just they're
Tuesday, but they're good.
Really?
Mhm,
I've
they're
never
Yeah.
good.
heard of
I've
this.
never heard
Yeah,
of
I
it.
do. I only buy deep.
Target. Target.
I literally buy my sheets from Walmart, the
Keep up
Jersey
for our
knit
Canadian
ones.
friends.
Oh,
We'll send some to you.
we'll send you
Kara.
some.
We'll throw it over the border.
Oh yeah, she's in Canada.
In Buffalo. We're up there.
Oh, there you go.
Do we want to do the other question? I know
Yeah.
we've kind of gone over an hour, but it's
Sure.
okay.
Why not?
Hey, it's a special episode.
It is a special episode. Okay, so what is starch and should we be using it? This was another submitted question to
Oh my
us.
God.
And I don't know the answer.
Do you know what that is?
That's why I asked. I have no idea what it is. I feel like,
only
No, we don't need it anymore. If you're talking about starch for laundry,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Your dad uses it. It's that spray by the iron board.
Oh, really? What does it do?
It's like it helps. Like if you have really wrinkled clothes, like you go, like if you go to the laundromat, like if you get, men's dress shirts clean, they'll say starch is the thing that kind of makes it stiff.
So it's like hairspray for shirts.
yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of.
yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
You can do heavy starch. I worked at Swan Dry Cleaners when I was in high school. Heavy starch, stiff. I can't believe you asked it. You grew up with starch. Your dad's also
I've heard the word, but I've never seen an
Communication.
yeah.
Doreen, were you going to add something?
No, I don't think very many people use it anymore, though.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Cornstarch,
only
though, different story, but
Yeah.
whoa, I didn't know what starch you meant.
Mhm.
oh, like baking or cooking.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Like potatoes.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we'll end this podcast on, I don't know, Sarah, what do you call it? A benediction or something?
Benediction. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Like the end of a church service.
So I will
Pastor
do
Kara.
this one. I will do this one for the moms on Mother's Day. So I will say that so many times moms think and stress about what they can offer their children and how they can be a good mom and all of these things that they need to do for us. And at the end of the day, all we need is to have love and support and encouragement. And that is literally it. So if you take us to trips and buy us all these things, if you give us the world, we don't care. We only care that you give us love, that you give us support, that you love on us. So please, moms out there, my mom, Kim, whoever else may be listening, do not beat yourself up about what you have or have not given, because if you have given us love, you have given us everything that we need.
Amen.
I love that.
Thank you.
I think that's a good note to end on. Should we cheers to the moms?
Yes.
Cheers to the moms. All the
And happy
moms
Mother's
listening.
Day.
Happy
Early
Mother's Day.
Yes.
Happy
Cheers.
Mother's Day.
Cheers.